Bret Baier is my guest. If there's going to be another presidential debate, I don't know that there will be. My absolute certainty is that Bret will be moderating it along with Martha McCullum. However, I don't know that there's going to be one. Bret Baier, good morning. How are you?
Morning. Doing well.
Have you played the golf course on which the attempt on President Trump's life Sunday happened?
I have with him a couple of times.
Okay, so can you give me some idea of how someone can get that close to the former president of the United States and current Republican nominee? Because I've been on a lot of golf courses and shots can be fired from a long way away. I just don't know how he got there.
So the fifth hole is this par three. I'm pretty sure this is par three, but the sixth hole is the hole that goes up against the road out there in front of as you're entering the property. And there's one part, it's kind of a dog leg, and up by the green there is like a fence line in the trees that is really close to the road. Now, there were gawkers for years when he was president, and the club added all kinds of trees and bushes into that area to separate visually the road from seeing anything. But there's still, a fence line, and you go into the woods area, and then you get up to the fence, and you can see the sixth hole from the fence, and that's where the suspect was with his gun, and that's where the agent who was going one hole ahead. They don't close off everything; they go one hole at a time. They have a big contingent with him, and then they have another couple of agents that go ahead and scout the hole ahead, and that is the guy that spots the gun on the next hole.
Now, Bret, I grew up playing on a golf course with a road hole, which was my nemesis. I probably put more golf balls out of bounds on number 10 than anywhere else in the world. And it's a road hole, and everyone who's played on a road hole that's a boundary of a course knows that's an OB. But you can see from a long way, you can see the end of the hole. Can you not see the road from the tee?
You can't, because they've added all these trees and bushes in that area.
I just can't visualize it, and we haven't seen any picture that explains it. It looked like a hedge, not a tree, and I can't tell if the guy was up in the tree or not.
No, he was along the fence line, but there are big kind of bushes and hedges and trees that they filled in there. And from the road, it starts like this tree-lined, heavy area, and then you get to a fence, and once you're up against the fence, the greenery on the other side is not that thick, and you can make out the hole, and more importantly, the golf cart path comes pretty close to that fence at that corner.
Would the president have been an easy target had the advanced Secret Service not seen and fired 4 shots at the shooter?
I actually think so, because that's the way you get to the next hole, is you go on the path, next to that fence.
I got it. You cannot. It's not just for people like me who hit the ball into the OB area. It's for you can drop then a couple of steps from out of bounds.
If you look at the visual, there's lots of trees and bushes, but once you get up to that fence, you're pretty close to the course itself. And at that juncture, the cart path kind of jets in pretty close to that fence as you're making your way to the next hole. So,
good Lord.
If he hadn't been seen, it's very possible that he could have been shot at as he was making the transition to the 7th hole.
Did you do a first-person account of that on Special Report last night? I was out. I didn't watch it. Did you do a special report?
I put up the map, and I tried to explain some of it. We're going to have the visuals on the ground to make so to your point, to see what I'm talking about, and they're not going to be willing to put cameras exactly where things are. But I showed it on a map and kind of talked it through. It's very possible, for all the people that say this may not have been an assassination attempt, he was in position to take that shot.
You see, the golf cart makes it all very real to me. Anyone who's ever done a golf cart knows that they get close to the OB sometimes. And if they're that, I didn't realize that that was the case. And if you're playing cart golf, and he always does, he would have gone by there. All right, Bret. Thank you for that detail. Let me ask you now about debates. You heard what I said at the beginning. Have you given up hope on moderating a second presidential debate?
No, no. In fact, I think there's some light on the former president's side. He said the other day if he was in the right mood, maybe he would agree. I think the Harris people are at least open to it being on Fox, and I think we're having some conversations to that end. So I haven't given up hope. I don't think it's 100% that it's going to happen, but you know, if you think about an event that has viewership of 70 million plus, it's tough, I think, for either candidate to look away from that, even if they think they're good, either to close the deal or if somebody's behind to make a different pitch. I think it's very possible.
No, I've worked with almost everyone in big media, and I don't know anyone I would trust more than you and Martha. And that's because I have no idea how you two vote, and I don't think you would be. I don't know David Muir, I don't know Lindsay Davis, but boy, did they fail, and it might be because Disney owns theme parks in China. I cannot believe that they didn't ask one China question, and I cannot believe that the vice president didn't get a follow up on. What do you mean there aren't any troops in combat? Would you have followed up on that, Bret, if she'd said there are no troops in combat zones?
Of course, of course. I mean, you've seen that video with the guys watching
I
and they
have.
turn and say, what are we doing? Of course, the first question, are you better off, are Americans better off than they were 4 years ago? There was no answer. So if they don't follow up, it was really the onus of the former president to say, I don't know, David, but I didn't hear an answer. And this is the reason she can't give one, because Americans aren't better off. I do think that there were a lot of follow-ups. And obviously the fact-checking 5-0 was obvious too. I think the whole thing about her changing or evolution on big issues really didn't get much play at all. It came in about 40 minutes into the debate, and it really never
I
got
do not
followed up.
believe in fact checking in real time because of the perils of fact checking in real time. The last debate I did in November of last year with NBC, no fact checking real time. They were fact checking online if people wanted to do it. Last question, Bret, one I asked of Byron York. Do we know why Springfield, Ohio was chosen as a receiving city for migrants, both legal and illegal? Do we have any idea why? Who did it and why? Because it's about the size of my hometown, Warren, Ohio, and we couldn't take 20,000 Canadians. I mean, it just would explode the schools, and we have one hospital. I mean, I don't know how they could have picked Springfield. Do you have any reporting on that yet?
We don't, and we'd like to know, and we're trying to dig into that GPS system to figure out why that city. I mean, it's a third of the population. So, for all of the talk about the dogs and cats, there is more focus on what's happening on the ground now, and it's a serious situation with being inundated. And I don't know why they chose Springfield. I do know that Bernie Moreno wants to have a town hall there this week with Vivek Ramaswamy and others. So I do think this issue is going to move the needle for some of those races in Ohio.
I think so too. And if we find out, I don't know that this is true, if we find out that DHS was picking cities and purposely picking cities in states that could not hurt Biden in a reelection campaign, that's a scandal. I'm not attributing that to Biden because I know that Somalis were selected to go to St. Paul years ago and to Portland, Maine, and that's odd choices, but someone made the choice, and there are consequences to that choice. But it wasn't 20,000 people. My goodness. Bret Baier, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. I hope you are successful in this debate bid because there's actually only one network left that everyone in the country will trust, and it's Fox. And there are only two people on that network that I think have the experience. It's Bret and Martha to do a debate and a team to set it up. So I hope that happens. Thank you, Bret Baier.